All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the best part of your Tuesday night. And if you're listening on iTunes or SoundCloud, what will hopefully be the best part of your Wednesday morning. I'm going to start the show a little bit different this week. Really thought about this weekend, and I want to thank Michael Smith and Jamel Hill for giving me the courage to do this. I went back and listened to some of the things that they said last weekend, so apologies to these two gentlemen here. I'm going to monologue for a second, but I want to definitely get your thoughts and feelings on a few things that I would like to say. And special thank you to Logistics Multimedia bringing us live to you guys yet again. So one of the things that I want to definitely call out is my soon-to-be brother-in-law and a guy that I grew up with and was best friends with for many a year. We're going on probably 20-plus years of friendship. They are both in law enforcement. I have the utmost respect for law enforcement. These are individuals that put their lives on the line and in the line of fire on a daily basis. But on Friday, we did have the verdict come back of not guilty in the Philando Castile case. Mm-hmm. And last summer on the ESPYs, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul, and Carmelo Anthony also eloquently said, the killing has to stop. The death and destruction of black and brown bodies has to stop. What more can you ask of an individual to be completely compliant with an officer, to follow all protocol, to let the officer know that, yes, I have a firearm, but I am registered to carry said firearm? And when the officer asked that individual to produce identification, to unload, I believe it was 7 rounds into this individual, with his child directly behind him in the back seat. So no regard for human life whatsoever. This is my call out to anyone out there that is listening. When it comes to interactions with police officers, people of color, and a lot of times we see this abbreviated as POCs, people of color feel a very specific way when it comes to interactions with law enforcement. And I'm just going to reinforce a few things that, again, thank you to Michael Smith and Jamel Hill for giving me the courage to open the show this way. I'm going to repeat some of the things that they said, and I'm going to put my own on it. The killing of black and brown bodies has to stop. And for all of the officers that do their job to the top-notch, utmost degree, we appreciate you and we support you. But we also have to draw that line and understand that there are officers that do not belong on the street. You can be pro-police. You can be pro-police protection, pro-law enforcement, but you can at the same time be anti-police violence, anti-unnecessary force, anti-excessive force. And those are the things that, as a country, we really need to look at. I'm going to give a plug here to 2 of our episodes, Content of Your Color and Race to the Finish Line.
Right.
Those are two episodes where we really explored for a total of about 3 hours the breakdown of racial divides and barriers here in the United States. And I implore you guys to listen to that because this is not going to be the show. I wanted to open the show with that particular thought because of all of the different anger and strife that I saw regarding that particular verdict. Because again, how much more compliant can you get with a law enforcement officer and still have 7 bullets discharged into your body and that officer get off with a not guilty verdict? Go ahead, Rod.
And we actually talked about that case in Content of Color. Definitely check that out on our audio. That was a phenomenal episode that we did. That as well as Race to the Finish Line. I mean, that is the type of racial dialogue conversations that we need to have in America. So really check those 2 out. But sadly enough, just like you even said here, is I was not surprised by that verdict because I had went into just talking about how I felt as a black man right now. If there was ever an altercation, it almost feels as if there is an ironclad defense that there could have possibly be the reasonable doubt of feeling threatened. And so really and truly, it puts me and it puts just black men in general in a no-win situation, honestly, because and for that particular verdict, it was heartbreaking to say that, and then to see the interview of his mother, it was absolutely heartbreaking, and also to see that he was a guy that was loved by his community and loved his community is even more heartbreaking. Just to see that go down like that, and so many people want to avoid those type of conversations, and I'm gonna leave it at this. it's not about trying to fan the flames of racism, but if injustices are still going on, it does no good to not acknowledge that there's a legitimate concern amongst the black male community, and it is a justifiable concern. And I think this case totally takes it to the level of you can't ignore it, and you really can't defend what happened.
3.0, we want to get your thoughts before we jump into the good stuff.
Well, here's my thoughts. There's several things that are a problem here. Number one, it is sad that we live in a country where the color matters. It's sad that you guys have to feel that way. And I want to voice that I don't believe I'm in a minority. There are a lot of white people out there that do not like that you guys, speaking in the context here of you guys having to still be judged by the color of your skin in 2017. So it upsets me that we even have to have this conversation. I am pro police officers, but I'm not pro police officers that do not follow protocol and do not follow the law. I am for law-abiding citizens. I'm not for the citizens that don't choose to follow the law. I'm for people that when they do right, they live in a society to be free what they want to be. And I am pro police officers that actually go out and sacrifice and do what they've honored to do. But it upsets me that we have to have this conversation. And I feel like as a white male that it's portrayed that we're afraid to talk about it and that we don't care. And I don't think that's the truth. But I do feel like that sometimes we're concerned on how we should express it.
Right, and thank you for saying all that. Again, we wanted to reinforce, we know that this is a job where it is very difficult. You have to make quick, snap judgments and decisions. But at what point do we realize that maybe there needs to be better training? And the example I gave you earlier, Rod, there were two inmates, before we go ahead and move on with the show, there were two inmates, both white males, that escaped and violently from a prison. They were captured last week, and the thing that really hit home for me is that when they were captured, they had actually taken a family hostage with firearms. They were apprehended peacefully. So these are guys with weapons apprehended and taken back to prison peacefully. And then you so many cases that we read about, armed or unarmed, a lot of times it is unarmed, black, Hispanic, Latino, on and on, people of color that are gunned down. And you ask yourself, why was this particular situation not de-escalated? No,
and my mother was a correction officer at a male facility for 25 years, and she spent a lot of that time on the tower. They actually had an inmate escape, and she was on the news with firing a shot when an inmate escaped.
So she was the sniper.
Yes, yes. So you didn't mess with mama growing up for me.
So in other words, if she ever caught you trying to sneak out, she'd throw the flip-flop.
Was it hard to get your actual friends to actually come over to your house?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. Shout out to Nebraska Mike on being afraid in college for coming home.
I'm going to read two.
But I was going to say that they were taught to not shoot to kill, but to injure, to disable.
So I'm going to read two comments here, one from Shatanya, and I'm going to read one from Drew. Shatanya says, the worst thing as a black woman is hearing the level of fright that so many black and brown men have in their voice when speaking on this particular topic of police. And Drew says something here. He says, as someone who's actually been shot at before, you would be surprised at how much time you actually get to think in a clutch situation. So again, that's not what we're going to, that is not the show. I wanted to open that because it felt unfair to completely ignore that with the level of conversation that I did see this weekend. So that was our soft open. Now, what we're going to be looking at this week, and shout out to all of our listeners and viewers. You guys have been telling us you really appreciate the way we've been breaking down the show in the first segment so that they can better follow along. So this is what we're going to be looking at this week. The sports calendar kind of shifts, right, after the NBA Finals. Now, me being a baseball purist and somebody that loves baseball, this is that time of year where I really focus in and I really start to follow the stats. I kind of turn into you 3.0. I'm following the stats, and it's all about baseball leading up to college football season. But for your average sports fan, this is the time of year where it's like, all right, well, what am I going to watch now?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So what most sports fans are doing this time of year is they're trying to find things that are going to fill that void with no sports. So
well, we're 21 days from the All-Star game. Mm-hmm. We are 43 days to just the Hall of Fame preseason of the NFL, and 66 days to Mayweather, McGregor, and the opening of college football. It is a snooze fest for many sports fans unless you appreciate majors in golf or you're a baseball purist.
Absolutely.
Talk about snooze jobs. How about that U.S. Open golf?
Actually, I enjoyed the U.S. Open, but this is how we're going to do it a little bit different this week. We've been mixing together culture and entertainment along with sports. This week we're going to kind of turn that on its head a little bit. What we're going to be looking at, the movie industry really as a whole, but also when you look at concerts, so the music industry, and of course sports, because a lot of people enjoy going to sporting events. We're going to be looking at the way things have shifted versus going to a movie theater, going to a concert, going to these sporting venues with the advent of whether it be high definition television. Being able to watch some of these events in 3D or virtual reality is becoming a thing once again. That kind of ebbs and flows with your VR. But we're going to break it down for you guys with movies, then we're going to transition to sports, and then we're going to sandwich in music and culture last so you guys can kind of follow along with what we're doing. But we're going to be looking at the fact that people are really starting to shy away from going to these things in person and starting to watch these things at home. Go ahead, 3 points.
Well, I have a prediction for you guys in the second segment when it comes to the movie industry. It may be controversial, but I have a prediction that I think y'all will certainly enjoy, and I believe it'll probably produce a lot of conversation.
Absolutely. And the reason that we're even covering this topic right now is because typically, like you said, movies and music concerts, this time of year is typically the go-to thing now that it is not competing with sports.
And before I pass it over to Mr. Ride, taking you guys again, major shout out to Logistics Multimedia. Give their Facebook page a like. He's going to be giving you guys the Logistics Multimedia commercial. Before I pass it to him, I would just like to say rest in peace to Philando Castile, because the outpouring of emotion from that community and the students that just loved and cared about him has just been overwhelming. And if just so happens this came across his mother's Facebook feed, we would like you to know that we are thinking about you and praying for you. We definitely saw the anger, the hurt, and the emotion with the not guilty verdict. And from all of us here at Switching the Coverage, we would like to send the best well wishes that we could to the Castile family.
Yeah, I mean, one of the hardest things in the world was to watch his mom's interview. So
I agree. So without further ado, Mr. Ride to the B, I'm going to pass it to you so you can go ahead and hit that Logistics Multimedia commercial. Go ahead with it, sir.
If you're looking for quality photography, videography, music production, live streaming, and you want it at affordable rates, you need to look no further than Logistics Multimedia. They come to you for your weddings, for your photo and modeling shoots, for your music videos, for your podcast, and more. Logistics Multimedia, always ahead of the curve.
All right, guys, so we are back for this second segment. Now we're going to loosen up, have a little bit of fun.
That's right.
That first segment felt a little bit heavy, but it was necessary.
It was totally necessary.
I think it was necessary. And I want to give you a special thank you, because neither one of y'all knew I was going to do that.
No.
I kept that to myself because I really had to think, am I going to get on the air and do this? But I felt it was necessary. You know, we
appreciate it.
We always talk about the fact that if you were led to do something, you don't ignore it.
Right.
So thank you for specifying from a different point of view than two black males, the white male point of view, because all of us really, this is what I dislike before we jump into entertainment. People will look at Rod and I and think we're going to have similar views, but we come from different backgrounds.
Yes.
Right.
So really we were able to give three different perspectives. So I want to thank both of you for allowing me the time to share that and to reach out to the
I want to
Castile
thank
family.
you for leading out like that.
Sure.
So let's go ahead and jump in here. Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples. So we're starting with movies for the people that want to follow along in the comments. David Childers, I know you're watching live. I'm actually going to read a comment he dropped later on towards the end of the show because he had a great nugget there as well. So I'm going to tie it back at the end. But when it comes to the movie industry, the last few movies I have been to see, Wonder Woman, I went to see Get Out, but there's a funny story about that. Wonder Woman, Get Out, The Force Awakens, Captain America, Civil War. But you think of something like a Moonlight, which won Best Picture.
Yeah.
I had no interest in going to see that. La La Land. I would have rather sat myself.
Now, was Get Out the scary movie?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Get Out
I
was
saw that.
Did you go with a girl so that you could console her as she was frightened during the movie?
So
Oh,
for anybody that has not seen Get Out, they're going to hear this and be offended, but I'm just going to say it. For the people that have seen it, they're going to get this joke.
Yes.
My best friend called me. He's like, hey, man, you need to go see that movie Get Out this weekend. I'm like, okay, man, I'll see it. I mean, he just kept saying it. He was like, but you got to take a white girl to see it. So, you haven't seen it. You haven't seen it. You get it.
Yes.
You get it.
Oh, man.
3.0, if you see the movie, it's a very specific new kind of genre of horror. It kind of delves into racism in America. So
It was a racial horror.
It was a racially based horror film. If you see it, that joke will make sense to you.
Okay. I don't think I'll see it.
But one of the things that we wanted to look at, so when it comes to movies, I was always that person that, I would see the trailers while I was at the movies. I would see the trailers on TV. I would go and watch them on YouTube, and I couldn't wait to get into the movie theater because it was an experience.
Yes.
The speakers are louder. The surround sound is true surround sound. The taste of movie theater popcorn and the energy and the atmosphere is just different when you're in a movie theater.
No question.
Captain America Civil War. I had to go see that in the movie theaters because there's just a different kind of energy when you go see that Marvel Cinematic Universe movie with all those people around you. But now I'd rather sit at home and, think of something, think of your smaller films. Like, okay, for example, Thor. Thor is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I have no plans to go see it at all. Go ahead, 3.0.
Well, no, I agree. I've gotten to the point where it's got to be that big A-plus blockbuster movie, like Superman, Batman, or something like that, where I'm interested in going to. But I would just say the average box office release or B movie or, something like that, I don't have to see it, and it'll be out in Redbox or maybe even go to Dollar Theater or something to see it later.
Yeah, and as a teen, I was one that I would go to a lot of your comedies or a lot of your big movies, but I wasn't just your most avid movie goer. But of course, when I started dating Miss Rod to the B, and she was a big time movie person. So it was literally like at least 2 movies a week we were going to see as we were dating and different things like that. And of course, it was that experience. And she was the one that we've got to be there before everything starts because we got to be able to see the previews for the upcoming movies and everything. But now it's literally like if it's not like a blockbuster type of movie, it's like we can just we'll stay in and just order something off of television.
I'm going to read a comment from Joe Amos here. Joe says going to the movies is outdated for the age group that used to go to the movies, so that would be us,
right?
Our age range. It used to be a date night. He said now, and I'm quoting you here, now these weirdos do quote unquote Netflix and chill. Going out and showing your girl a good time is outdated because, as they say, ain't nobody got time for that. Now, that is another thing that I actually agree with is our generation and our parents' generation, our grandparents. It used to be if you were going to go on a date, you took them out in public, you took them to dinner, maybe you went to see a movie.
Yes.
Dating now is considered come over, sit on the couch, and let's put on a movie on the TV. And I'm not sure how realistic it is to think they're actually watching the movie.
Well, in your case, we certainly know that's true. But there was a book one time called "From the Porch Swing to the Back Seat," and you're right. It has changed to where you did go out in public. I mean, I remember being excited. I don't remember the age. I was early teens. I wasn't even probably a teenager. Where my parents would drop me off at the movie theater,
yes,
and I would go in a group. But now that's totally changed.
So, Rod, I know you have some statistics there. One of the questions I have for you, because one of the questions we pose to each other is what time of year is actually the best time of year for your traditional summer blockbusters, because this has been one of the worst seasons for the summer blockbuster.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, and that's this, the movie industry made its mark, I would say, from the early 80s until recently with the summer blockbusters. You could even go back to, like, for instance, in the 80s, if you look at 9 out of the top 10 movies in the 80s, and I think it's pretty safe to say for all of us that the 80s was the era that really coined the summer blockbuster.
Yes.
12 of the top 15 movies in the 80s have now been remade.
Yes. And so wow. Yeah, that's a good stat right there.
That is a good stat.
Yeah, but 9 out of the top 10 grossing movies from the 80s were produced after the end of May. So the only one that wasn't was like Beverly Hills Cop, which was like in December, which is another big time of year. But 9 out of 10 came from the summer at that particular time. So it's over the 90s and 2000s. It's become expected that in the summer you're going to see most of your blockbuster movies, and so that's why there's anticipation. But there's just been a lot of different things now that have changed that. Number one, like you guys said, just as a whole, the movie quality is just not there. You just said 12 out of 15 from the 80s have been remade. So
Yes.
So that basically tells us is our go-to to make a good movie is just to remake one that was good.
So the oldest it could be is 37 years old. Is that my math right?
Yeah.
37
Yes,
years old.
And I've got some stats I believe that will actually prove your point about the quality of the movies being made. When we look, when you hear on your TV, hey, this is the biggest grossing movie and blah blah blah. They're not adjusting that to inflation. So the only
Correct.
way to be true to the movies, movie theaters, going to the movies, that experience that you talk about, we can go back to 1910, but we had, in the 1930s, you had the number one grossing film of all time for adjusted inflation, Gone with the Wind. But what I wanted to say is in the last 20 years, so we're going back to 1997, the only movie that has actually been in the top 10 in the highest grossing ever is the Titanic.
So I'm actually going to call out a couple of things to you because we're going to see a pattern with our viewers and
A
listeners.
big pattern.
Yes.
Despicable Me, and this is from several different people, Drew, David, Shatanya, a few people. I'm just calling out some of the movies they listed. Despicable Me 3, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor. Those are just a few of the ones that I saw.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing. 2 superhero movies,
Yes.
and then a movie for the kids.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right? So really what we are seeing is that movies like they are remaking Blade Runner. I think no. Let me correct myself before the nerds pile on me. They are not remaking Blade Runner. They are coming out with a Blade Runner sequel. I got it. I'm a nerd too. They're coming out with a Blade Runner sequel. Harrison Ford, yes, he will be in it. Ryan Gosling is also in it. So Blade Runner sequel. There was not as much fanfare and nerddom.
Yes, nerddom. That was a great way to put it.
On Twitter as I expected it to be. Because, again, people are like, wow, that looks great. Can I watch it on my Fire Stick? Is somebody going to pirate this movie? Where can I find it without going into the movie theaters?
Right.
And one thing we haven't looked at is just rising ticket prices.
And I was just about to say that we were thinking the same way. Cost. I'll give you an example. My wife and my 7-year-old went to a movie last week in Montgomery. And for a medium popcorn and 2 medium drinks and a ticket for a woman in her 30s and a 7-year-old, it was a grand total of $41.
Well,
Wow.
well,
Go ahead,
and,
3 point.
and most people aren't going to do that. There's so many choices for your kids that you can just have them, get something off Netflix or go Redbox for $1, and you don't have to spend $40. Now, one thing I do want to say, I was interested. I went and looked at ticket prices. Of course, a little trivia: ticket prices in 1910 were 7 cents, but the average across the United States of America right now is $8.65. And that's 25% increase in the last 10 years. But if you do it in adjusted inflation, in 1967, it was actually 11 cents higher than it is today. It's not the movie ticket price that's gone up. It's the popcorn and it's the drink. In fact, I read a stat one time that popcorn, if you take it the price and what you get and the butter and all that, it actually costs more than printer ink. It's one of the biggest price gouges that there is how much you pay for popcorn.
Well, and I mean, we can, we talk about nerddom here, but we can even get more in depth as far as not only are the prices going up, but remember, in society right now, wages aren't going up. In fact, people are making less money than they used to be making.
Right.
Absolutely accurate.
So $30 to somebody in like 2000 feels like $60 to somebody today.
I agree with that. Now, one thing I wanted to go back on, the pattern that I keep seeing here on the feed about different movies people are talking about. You mentioned this a minute ago about how it's like sequels and to me or superheroes or
Correct.
cartoons. real quickly, I'm just going to go through the list. Titanic, that was an original type movie, but number 11 all time, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That's just an extension of
That's an
something that we
extension.
Yeah,
since the
it's an extension.
1970s.
People get nostalgic when they
Yes.
get a chance to see the Star Wars. Like,
correct.
I'm getting nostalgic waiting on this
Okay.
one here in December.
Credit here, number 15, Avatar. That was something fresh and new.
That was original.
Okay, but Star Wars Episode 1 extension.
Phantom Menace 99. Yeah.
Right.
So wait, so that's the Phantom Menace.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
extension, yes.
Yeah, extension. That was the number 24 all time, Jurassic World. That's just
That's
a sequel
most definitely, yeah.
from the
And-
90s.
That's kind of a reboot. Reboot,
was.
Okay.
reboot in the sense that they just kind of said
It was an
Okay.
extension,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
Okay.
It was
Avengers.
re-extension.
Yeah.
Avengers is a superhero movie.
Yes,
Okay. Dark Knight. That was something fresh. It was a superhero movie.
and it was also
was
a
a-
sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a
it was a
sequel.
sequel. Shrek 2 is a sequel.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, the first one that they did in the early 2000s, not two.
2002.
That's a superhero. And then number 48, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Dead Man's Chest. What was that?
It was original, but I mean, they actually had a lot from the Disney lore that was
Right.
based in.
So my point is, in the top 50 all time in the last 20 years, we've really only got between Avatar and Titanic. We've only gotten really about 2 originals.
Hold on.
That is not superhero.
As a writer, I'm on full nerd on y'all right now. This is what makes me angry about Hollywood. You constantly hear where there's no originality. I almost said a 4-letter word, because what's happening is they are taking these franchises that already exist and then they will either reboot them, re-extend them, or further extend them. And the issue is you have all of these scripts. See, actually, I'm gonna give you guys some Hollywood inside scoop.
Okay.
I'm going full Ari Gold from Entourage. Shout out to all my Entourage fans. They actually have what's called the blacklist. That is all of the screenplays that are not purchased and unproduced that are just floating around Hollywood.
Sure.
Now, obviously, I can't get my hands on them, but and off the top of my head, I can't think of one off the top of my head right now. I'll do some research and look. But there have been several films in the past. Actually, I do think Moonlight was one in the past couple of years that couldn't get financing and couldn't get production, and then when they finally did, they blew up like a Moonlight. And it's like, theaters are afraid to take risk and chances on something that might be a little bit different or that didn't have something to hold it up that came before.
What's we always hear insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And we talk about, like you just said, we're always going to the reboot. We're always going to the superhero card and different things like that. But and I'm going 3.0 with this. 2002 was the peak of the movie industry in terms of ticket sales and attendance going up. Since 2002, every single year, movie theater attendance has declined. In fact, 3.5% fall last year. That's like $513 million.
Wow.
That's like $500 million that they lost it in a year. And they're losing money year over year like a tourniquet.
I'm going to read
and
a
that
comment
goes into,
here
go ahead.
from Lisa Mosley. Lisa Mosley says, Hollywood has lost its charm. I'm tired of the same old stories and reboots. And that's exactly what we're saying.
And then even technology is capitalizing on the fact that the movie industry is lagging, whether it's cost, whether it's the reboots. Because Sean Parker, our great friend from Napster,
Don't call that dude my friend.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't even realize this, but he actually has a streaming company out right now, and 6 out of the 7 big studios is in agreement with him, and it's something like pretty soon, like you can have like $150 box or something like that, and you'll actually be able to stream the movies
that are in the theaters.
That are in the theaters actually before they get them in a lot of cases.
So before we move on to sports, this is the question. Did you have something 3.0?
Well, I want to get my prediction in about the movie industry before
That
we
was going to be what I closed with.
Right.
Before we move on to sports, I want to pose this question to the audience. Do you, as a viewer, feel like that the movie theater chain business industry is dying a slow death? We'll go around the table. Yes, I do. Because people like myself that I know, just if it was a blockbuster film, had to see it in the theater, there are few and far between for myself. Go ahead, Rod.
I absolutely do, and it's because of people's habits, the way technology has shifted, and then also just the mere numbers. You've got Hollywood now that has agreements out there. A lot of your big studios, not only with streaming, but after a movie is released, Like their goal is 3 weeks, and it's in its home on DVDs or whatever it is, And so the industry is already bracing for the collapse.
Go ahead, 3.0.
And my big prediction is there is going to be a collapse. It's going to be a slow death, but it is going to be a collapse. And you really think about it. Let's just put movies back in the context of American culture, like how important that's been to America, Connor, and our society. I say to you that in 20 years, and maybe less, the movie theater will be dead. They will bypass the movie theaters, and we will see that movies get directly downloaded to our streaming devices or whatever we have 20 years from now.
I do agree with that.
And that you're not going to get it for 99 cents, but you may get it for $10 or whatever. That's my prediction, but and I want to see what the audience thinks. If they agree with that, that's number one. But here's my thought. Let's just pretend that I'm right, and the movie theater goes away. I was trying to think about, if that went away, what else in society have we lost something that big? You know what I mean? Like, I was trying to think, we've had a lot of change, and it's been replaced by something better. And I guess you could argue that it might be better. But my point is has there ever been anything that will have been that big of loss in our society in the last 50 years?
I say no, and I understand your question. I think what we're going to see is a serious dip, but then they're going to start to pull things away. Like, you got to come to the movies to see this. You have to come to the movies to get this aspect of the film or to get this kind of experience. That's what they do. It's because they control the medium through which it is released, right? So when the public pushes, they're going to pull. So I understand what you're saying, and the answer to your question is no. And I'm going to read one comment about movie theaters before we move on to sports. Nicole Weems says, and thank you for watching us live, Nicole, says, I think it's notable that theaters are now rescreening classics. For example, in Birmingham theaters, they were recently showing an old Marilyn Monroe movie just last week. Yes, they are struggling. Now, that's one thing that I have noticed is that a lot of theaters, yes, they are rescreening films. That's how you draw people in. But again, these newer films, it's not the newer films. It's always the nostalgia that seems to be drawing people into the theaters, as was evidenced by your list 3.0.
Yeah, the top 10 grosses all time by inflation, none of them were extensions, or none of them were sequels, and none of them were reboots.
All right, so moving on to sports. So when it comes to sports, again, I think we can trace this back to a very base idea or very basic math, is that ticket cost. Ticket cost is through the roof.
Yes.
In 2013 and 2014, I was able to purchase tickets to Alabama's first game. It was Virginia Tech in 2013, West Virginia in 2014 for myself and my father. I was able to treat him to the entire day. Didn't pay for food. He didn't pay for parking. It was son trying to treat father, taking him to Alabama's first game.
That'll be nice when they play Florida State. You can do that with you there.
Everyone is very well aware that that my baby sister.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
Yes, baby sister is getting married that day.
Okay, sorry.
That's probably going to be like number 1 against number 2.
It is. But her fiance Brandon is a big time Florida State fan.
Yeah,
we've already worked it out. We got.
Well, at least he's getting married that day.
So how much did you pay for those games?
So now here's the thing: those tickets for the Alabama Virginia Tech were upwards of $300. This is what I was able to do. Virginia Tech was not able to sell their allotment of tickets, so I caught those tickets at $100 a piece. So they had dropped by $200.
Right.
West Virginia, they were up to $500 a piece. I waited and waited. West Virginia was not able to sell their allotment, so they went back to the Alabama ticket pool, and I got those tickets for $150 a piece. So obviously a lot cheaper. But just imagine that at their peak. Actually, I don't even think that was the peak. That was about mid-level, $300 and $500 a piece for 2 tickets. That does not include lodging if we would have decided to stay.
Sure.
That does not include food, entertainment, concessions. Go ahead, 3.0.
No, I agree. It's getting more pricier. Now, where we base our show out of, we're in the hotbed of the Southeast, where college football is a big part of our culture. We still take dates to games, so that hasn't faded. But there's no question that the ticket prices eventually are going to outpace the viewers. Now, one thing that college football has a lot of going for them is the tailgating experience. I've got people that come tailgate with me at football game that don't even have a ticket to the game. They can't afford it, but they do want the experience of the tailgating throughout the day. But not all sporting events, baseball, for example, and basketball, you don't really tailgate for that. But there is going to come a day where they're going to outprice their fan base, because it's very simple. You can have a 60-inch screen TV, and 4K is coming around, and they're going to continue to make it
Yeah,
easier.
your seat in front of your high definition oftentimes is so much better than a nosebleed at the stadium. And then what's going to also happen 3.0 is a lot of people are going to just settle for the tailgate experience as opposed to buying the ticket.
And here's something that I've realized. I will use a really great example. Alabama versus Clemson 1 and 2, right? I told myself I would have loved to have been at those games. Maybe not Alabama Clemson 2, because I probably, y'all know me, I probably would have gotten a fist
Well,
fight.
I was there.
I know, it's your fault. I probably would have gotten in a fist fight. But here's the thing. In the privacy of my living room, I could throw my remote. There's a soccer ball, soccer ball that I actually carry around. You guys know this during Alabama games, so I can pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. I'm good luck, I'm bad luck.
Mojo.
All the mojo. I can't do all those weird things in the stadium. I got to decide what food was delivered and or cooked. I got to decide who I was going to be with to watch the game.
Right.
I got to decide everything about that experience. My decision making and my level of accountability as far as what the experience is going to be like when I watch it at home, it's all on me. Even if I go to a friend's house for a viewing party, I can somewhat at least control that experience. When you were at the game live and in person, the atmosphere and the energy is completely different. And I would say on a whole nother level that can't be recreated.
It's a high.
But you were at the mercy of that event.
And
No,
you're
I
dealing
agree.
with traffic and everything else when you're coming out. The reality of the situation that makes it most true is the fact that I was looking around the big three, which is the NFL, the NBA, and MLB, all have shown a decline over the last 5 years in attendance.
Not the NBA.
Yes. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. With the NBA, your smaller markets like the Milwaukee Bucks and your Sacramento Kings, they've
Correct.
seen in Detroit, in fact, you've seen as we love to say, a precipitous decline.
Well, the thing is that your large market teams, LA, New York, they're going to pull people in
Yes.
because
Right.
and a lot of times
Star power usually.
It's not only star power. It's not even so much about going to the game. It's I want to be seen at the game. Or let me
Yeah.
say that different. It's not about seeing the game. It's about being seen at the game.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to do two polar opposite points here about sports. Now, one thing that is helping the sports, and something that even millennials are doing, and I think they're doing a good job of actually teaching the older generations, is they're going for the experience over expense items, for example. They're not going out and spending their money in the houses and the cars and big ticket items anymore. They really are more experience based. And so I do think while sports is an experience, I think that's one thing that does help. It is an experience to go. But I think, and this is just the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about when it comes to going to sporting events, is we saw it in a movie with Batman, is what happens when we have the first catastrophic terrorist attack
I
inside
was just about to
a
get
major
that. There's a
sporting
lot
event.
of fears right now on these type of events and people being captive to that. I mean, like you say, it goes on regularly for soccer events, particularly internationally. But now it's that very real thought that this could be happening at home as well. So yes, that is a solid point.
That actually ties in to music. So I'm gonna
Yes.
I'm gonna mesh these
Sure.
two together,
Yes.
and I'm gonna read two comments. Apparently, David has alcohol on the mind tonight. David says you can pay $30 for whiskey at home or $30 for one beer at the game. So, but he's right though. I mean, the prices for your concessions are sky high. I get what he's
yes,
trying
yes.
to say.
The economics are-
I eat my tailgate food, and then I don't eat in the stadium.
And a comment here from Nicole. Nicole says, I think it changes with age. 3 years ago, when she was college age, she would say that she would want to be at the event live. Now, when she's quote unquote old and grumpy, she'd rather be either at home or at a good tailgate. Now, I think that's true because all of us at some point or another were together in some shape, form, or fashion in Bryant-Denny Stadium for a big Alabama
Sure.
game. All of us, because we did attend university level together. And when I go now, yes, when I go with my father, that is a very personal, special experience. But if I were to go with another group of friends that weren't you guys, that we did not share that experience with at the college level, it's not going to be the same for me. So I understand what she's saying, and I think as you grow the memories that you made, they seem to be untouchable, and you don't want to try to recreate them.
Right.
No, and that is correct, but I'm going to get even more real with the situation. Is just the fact that the lack of disposable income in our society right now, especially in the millennial group, in the transitional group, as we coined them after our millennial live podcast way back, is we're at that point where we're getting in our late 20s, 30s, and 40s, and which should be the buying power age in America. And because, like I said, the income is not there, I think the lack of income is necessitating things like technology being leveraged, the experience-based type of things being leveraged. So we can't get away from the fact that I do think that the lack of income is because baby boomers, they still have the buying power and they're getting older.
Correct.
Well, and I think another thing too is I go to all the games. I don't have kids yet, so I'm going to games knowing that there's going to come a day where I have a kid and I'm not going to be able to go as much. You know, you have 2 children, so you know you don't go as much. But when you don't have kids yet, then you get to
I've
go.
been to your tailgate with kids, and trust me, I'm ready to go.
Right. And now,
I'm ready to go.
And the thing that really pushes me to go to games is my tailgate is 40 plus every week, and so I have that camaraderie and that experience with people. But I don't think I would enjoy the games if I went by myself or.
Your tailgate, you guys are like seriously tight knit. It's like it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's an experience in and of an experience.
Sure.
So as I said, I'm gonna kind of mesh music and your concert experience together here with sports, because the Manchester benefit concert, I know that you and the Mrs. watched it. I did not watch it, but I was able to see that it was available via Periscope on Twitter. It was also available on Facebook via Facebook Live. Now, I'm sure for the people of the community and of, London and England as a whole, UK as a whole, being there for something that tragic is probably a whole nother level of emotion that we will never be able to understand.
No, it would be.
Now having said that,
I know where you're going with it.
The whole thought process was to raise money for victims of a terrorist attack that happened at an Ariana Grande concert. I'm sure a lot of people thought, that's great and that's wonderful, but at the same time, I can sit at home and I can watch this and I can pray for these people and I can donate in the safety of my own home.
Yes, not only did they think that, but here's another thing. When we talk about convenience on top of that is, while granted they weren't there and could just experience the energy inside of that stadium, but you really and truly could experience that emotion, and you could see that from your home. I mean,
correct.
And that's something, 30 years ago, you would just have to wait till they got back in the States or got back in your town to experience that type of concert. But we can do it. You go to YouTube right now. How many people have uploaded video of a concert from their phone?
One thing that I do want to say, this was back in 2014. I'm a big-time Jay-Z fan, big-time Sean Carter fan. He's got an album dropping later this summer, but he's dropping it on Tidal. Nobody has a subscription to Tidal. You need to go ahead and release that thing on Apple Music. But he actually has the large portion of stock in Tidal.
Well, of course.
Well,
But here's the point that I wanted to make, is that in 2014, the On the Run tour with Jay-Z and Beyonce, 2 of my good friends, Jennifer and Rachel, huge Beyonce fans. So they were like, come to the concert with us. And I'm not going to a Beyonce concert. This is how they got me. Well, Jay-Z's going to be there too. So I went.
You're like, I'm there.
I know, I went. And the thing is that what you experience at a concert, that cannot be recreated via video.
It can't.
No.
And true enough, a lot of the things that we see in movie theaters, and whether you're at a sporting event, they cannot be recreated. But I think it's a whole different level that just absolutely cannot be recreated in any shape, form, or fashion when it comes to concerts.
And I will say this. I know we predicted a slow death or whatever you want to call it for the movie theaters. I am not going to predict a death for the concert. And another reason why is just what you said about that experience can't be replicated anywhere else, the ultimate experience of being there. But then the other thing, too, if you really want to look at it from a financial standpoint now, because of the iTunes and a lot of things technologically, starting back with our boy Sean Parker. With Napster, basically just totally tore down the music industry in respect to record sales. But because record sales and different things like that is not where they make their money. They make it up in the tours and the concerts right now.
Correct.
So that's a big money maker for the music industry, the concerts. I don't see I mean, people are opting out of it, surely, but the concerts will continue to be one of the main sources of income for the music industry because of the technology and the conveniences are actually affecting the other areas more than the concerts.
I do agree with you that it probably does affect it more than concerts. And I think one thing that we haven't talked about, we have talked about how technology and periscopes and Facebook Lives and all that, how you can see the things. But there is an aspect that we haven't looked at. And the reason, I think one of the core reasons why, whether it be movie theaters, concerts, sporting events, etc., is technology has allowed us access, sure. But when we talk about experience, we used to go to a movie theater, it was an experience to go. Or you go to a sporting event, an experience to go. I think the problem now that we have, especially with the younger generation that has grown up with this, is now they're getting that, you're asking, well, where do you get that experience from? You're getting the experience because they're living through the social media aspect of it. So when they're watching a live game or watching a concert, then you've got everybody, on social media talking about it. And I think people are slowly replacing that experience. Like, hey, I'm connecting with all these people on Twitter talking about this event, and that is replacing their experience versus not being there.
We have totally become a vicarious society.
What you just said just kind of struck a lightning bolt in my head. Think about what we saw our social media team do during the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the three of us did not get to attend any of those games in person.
Right.
A lot of the people on the social media team begged for us to get them tickets. The answer was no. But so the thing is that they were able to connect with people. I was able to find out some people that were at the game with some of the things that they were saying on Twitter. And then when you had the Warriors parade last week, Too Short, the rapper Too Short, was at the parade and was actually interacting with our social media team. So I agree with what you're saying, that togetherness that you feel within the stadium and the venues, movies, sporting events, concerts, is being replaced by this false connectedness of social media.
I mean, I go into a restaurant and I see two kids and a set of and parents
all
sitting
on
there,
their phones.
and they're all on their
Everybody's
phones.
on their
They're
phone.
right there, but what are they getting their experience from? They're getting their experience through the social media, and they're not getting the experience through the live interaction of people. They're getting it through their phone, and it's a fake experience that they really can't replicate. But it's so powerful that people fall for it.
I mean, we were coming back from a movie after when our social media team was hitting on it. I felt like I was experiencing Kyrie's Inferno that night, literally, because of what the social media team was doing.
So last thought, then we're going to take it to the last commercial break. Before we get to our third segment, if you would like to participate and be a part of that third segment, hop in our DMs, right?
Yeah.
DM us your questions
man.
on Twitter at Switch Coverage, or you can email them to us, switchingthecoverage@gmail.com. You send us questions. We will use them in the third segment. We got one awesome question that we're going to use in honor of Father's Day was this past Sunday. So that actually came from Rachel, DM'd it to us on Twitter, so we're going to use that. But before we get there, wrapping up this segment, I'm going to give my thoughts. You guys can close out.
Okay.
Then we got our last commercial break. I think when it comes to, I'm going to break them down. When it comes to movies, I think we will continue to see a precipitous decline, but the movie theaters and your studio heads, they're going to find a way to start pulling it back. Like, you have to come to the theater to get this particular aspect. That's what they're going to do, and I think it will draw people back. When it comes to sporting events, HD TV, virtual reality, 3D TV, and again, for me personally, I get to control how I consume the event. I think sporting events you're going to start to see more smaller venues and stadiums instead of these big 150,000 bowls and domes and so forth. I think you're going to see the same thing with sporting events. I agree with you, Rod. We won't see that when it comes to music and concerts because that's just something that, in my opinion, cannot be recreated.
I will say I do think that we're going to see there be a absolute shift in the way that we consume movies. I think that the movie industries and everybody else understand that. I think the movie studios are ahead of it. I think the theaters are actually really scrambling to figure out ways to bring people back, like they're trying to do all the dinner and the movie and the experiences or whatever. But I do think that will be one that does gradually decline into something else. I do agree with you as far as with the sporting industry. I think that what we're going to see here, and it's so funny that you did that, you're going to see smaller, more luxurious stadiums built. And so what they're going to do to compensate for people not attending is make it even more of a super experience for those that do.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think you're going to see much more luxurious but smaller stadiums across the board in all sports. And then as far as with concerts, I mean, that's a work of art. And it's an experience that you can't. It's nothing like being there live. So I think that all the things around concerts and the music will shift technologically, but the concerts themselves will stay a staple.
3.0.
I agree in principle with all you guys. I don't know about smaller stadiums, but I do agree that they're going to have to constantly look at giving you a larger experience. Making sure that there's Wi-Fi in all the venues. You can go to a movie theater now and have a recliner. My wife went into one where she can recline. So
they have the VIP section.
Yeah, they're going to continue to create more experiences and go beyond just the traditional get a drink and you sit down and watch a game. As far as the movie concerts, I think they do have a leg up among the others that we talked about. But we didn't think we'd be discussing this 20 years ago. So there's always technology that we haven't even thought of.
That's a good point.
But I still believe that the biggest concern I have is as long as we have people getting their experiences through I'm not saying never, but they're getting everything of their experience through social media, I think that is a bad sign for our society, and it will affect all of the different categories that we discussed.
There's one thing that we all have forgotten that can really wrap this up, and Drew Tolbert said it earlier. UAB football is very, very cost effective for us all.
It is definitely compared to the Tide.
I have to give you a shout out for earlier. You said let's do UAB football is a compromise.
All right, I'm going to take you guys to our last commercial break. Then we got our Ask the Panel question coming up. Go ahead and take you guys to our last commercial break coming at you right now. So again, I want to thank everybody for watching the Switching the Coverage live broadcast this week. Follow us on Twitter at Switch Coverage. Make sure to give our Facebook page a like. If you have any questions that you would like to ask the panel and have those questions be a part of our third segment, you can DM them to us, again, on Twitter, at Switch Coverage. Email them to us, switchingthecoverage@gmail.com. We greatly appreciate all the audience interaction, feedback, and participation that we get every week. For everybody that's watching us live now, there's a lot of people that tell us they watch live and they don't ever comment anything at all.
It's true.
Feel free to jump in the comments. We love to bounce ideas off of each other. We love to share your comments here on the air. If you want to hear your name shouted out, that's how you do it. Leave a comment or send us a question. Again, switchingthecoverage@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at Switch Coverage. Make sure to give that Facebook page a follow and a like. We're going to go ahead and get ready to take you guys to that third and final segment. All right, so we are back live for the third and final segment, the Ask the Panel segment. You know what? I don't like that name. I just kind of coined it that because
Ask the Panel.
That's so bland. That's so cliche, but that's what they're doing. So we're gonna leave it up to the audience. What should we call this third segment where you guys are submitting questions?
Chime in the comments. Give us something.
So chime in the comments. Give us something. You can email us your suggestions and ideas. But this question came from Rachel here on our Twitter account at Switch Coverage. I'm going to read the question, and Rod, I want to go last because I think I got a wild card. I got the draw four. If we were playing Uno, I got the draw.
You got
four.
the draw four.
So
those are so annoying to me when you're about.
Oh, I know. So if we were playing spades, I got the ace of spades. But the question is,
yeah, that's right. You don't play with deuces.
No, we ain't get into
that. All right,
that.
man. Okay.
No, I don't. No deuces. All right, so in honor of Father's Day, which was this past Sunday, she wanted each of us to pick one best TV dad of all time. So we only get one. You get one pick in this draft. One pick. So, Rod, I'm going to start with you.
I don't care what's going on out there right now. Mr. Cliff Huxtable is the dad of all time on TV. I see you over there.
I almost fell out of my chair.
Cliff Huxtable. I mean, come on, just look at what he did as a dad on the Cosby Show. I mean, like, I still remember him taking next door neighbor Peter and helping him to not be afraid of the dentist, or all the different little games he played with Rudy, or just I mean, he was just your standard of a father that could be hilarious, but then at the same time give wonderful wisdom, not just to his kids, but the neighborhood, the family, you name it.
3.0.
Real quick question. Did you roll your eyes because you knew he was going to say that, or do you think the real-life Bill Cosby situation has affected that question?
The latter. I think the real-life situation with Bill Cosby has affected the way people view Cliff Huxtable. That's why I almost fell out my chair.
Well, I knew he was going to say Cliff Huxtable, so I purposely picked him. And I think but our long-term audience and listeners are probably expecting me.
I thought about him.
Expecting me to probably go with Andy Taylor of at the Andy Griffith Show, but I'm going to shout out somebody that I mean people know, but we haven't talked about him in a long time. Is I think Mr. Brady, the Brady Bunch.
Okay, tell us why.
I think what I liked about him, first of all, he got Father of the Year, if you remember, if you watched one of the episodes that Marsha wrote him an essay for Father of the Year. But what I thought was really good about him was, you got to remember, he joined, he got remarried, and so he, chose to love 3 daughters that weren't biologically his.
Correct.
In a time where, that wasn't a mainstream thought to divorces and stuff like that. So I thought that the way that he did, Danny Tanner did it too cheesy, but for his time, I thought the way he had the sit downs.
He was my honorable mention, Danny Tanner.
Yeah, well, he was just too cheesy for me. But I thought the way that Mr. Brady, I thought he was fair. I thought that he handled punishments, and I thought the way he explained them, hey, this is what you did. And I'm old school. I still love it when there is a lesson at the end of the. I like it when there's a lesson to it.
Hey, 3.0, you got to look at the comments there from switching the coverage. So our team is having some fun with 3.0.
Our social media team.
Tell him, Eric.
Hold on. Everybody breathe. Our social media team is poking fun at you because you didn't mention him this week, so they're giving you a reason to. 3.0, they want to know, is Garth Brooks a good dad?
Yeah, we'll find out who did that, and they might be recommended for that. I have no idea whether he's a good dad or not. I don't even know if he
What do the numbers say?
All right, let me answer this because we got to get the people out of here. You are not fired. Hefe has made the decision. All right, so here's the thing. I went with one that I could kind of connect to real life for me, right? I know you were able to spend Father's Day with the family. 3.0, did you get to see your dad on Father's Day?
I did not, unfortunately. He actually is in Scotland right now, so he wasn't going to pay for me to go out there, and I wasn't going to go out there myself.
So if you guys ever wonder,
but I did make sure that before he left, that I FedExed him his gift in time before he went on his trip.
So if you guys ever wonder where that Tony Stark money came from, there's your answer. Comes from Papa 3.0. So my answer is both professional and personal at the same time. So for me, guys, Jack Pearson. Now, that name probably doesn't ring a bell for a whole lot of people, but we talked a lot about it when we were talking about TV shows this past fall, and I went off when we had the TV tournament show bracket. If you want to catch it on iTunes or SoundCloud, Classics and Brackets. If you want to check
that was a good one.
That was great. That was great.
Wasn't that our first episode that we also did a live broadcast for?
That was.
So first episode
Nostalgia.
that we did live. Now, Jack Pearson is the father on the television show This Is Us. And what I appreciate is, so when it comes to TV fathers, a lot of times you see a couple of different dynamics. They've taken in somebody else's children, like a Mike Brady, or I don't remember his first name, but the father on the OC, Mr. Cohen. He took in Ryan Atwood, and he was already a good father to Seth Cohen. But Jack Pearson, yeah. So in a way, I guess it's a combination because they did adopt a child when the third of their triplets died. But Jack Pearson embodies all of those things that you see in a good parent. He's loving, he's caring, he's understanding. More than that, he loves his wife more than life. And the thing about me is there were so many moments, and I sent my dad like 12 text messages, and I'm going to be super mad because I don't think he's actually watching this week. This was my moment for him because I did not get to spend Father's Day with him. growing up, everybody called my dad Jack. He's a Mr. Jack, Uncle Jack. So a lot of what I saw in Jack Pearson reminded me so much of my father, because you guys know that I say my father's a superhero. And to me, Jack Pearson was that superhero level father. So it was something that it was both, again, professional and personal, because professionally I thought it was a great show, and I could relate to the way he was upbringing his children. But it reminded me of my father. So, Dad, if you're out there watching, this is my shout out to you for being an outstanding father, and Jack Pearson cannot hold a candle to you. So, Rod, anything else you got before we wrap it up?
Man, I mean, how can you top that with Pearson? I mean, that was even better than when you explained him in Classics and Brackets. I mean, so yeah, shout out to our real dads, because that's a tough job, and just being able to be the cornerstone and the stability of families for a lot of you fathers out there. I know it's past Father's Day, but I just want to give a shout out there.
3.0, what you got before we wrap?
Shout out to all the fathers out there, even though
I'm only laughing because this is what I've noticed. I always make him go second, and his first sentence is always the last sentence of whoever went first said.
Yeah.
Go. I'm sorry.
It's called transition. But hey, shout out to all the fathers out there, and I think fathers, to me, have probably the toughest task of any generation now, because with the social media and the things that we've talked about that's affecting our society,
yes,
I think they have the toughest job, and we've got a lot of we have a lot of single parent homes, we have a lot of divorced parents, etc. And I do think one of the best traits of a dad is something you mentioned, is it's very important to be a good husband, and not just a good dad. But for the ones that aren't husband, you can still be a good dad. But I think this is the most challenging time to be a dad, and to be able to have that relationship with your kids, and be able to keep them from getting distracted from all the distractions that we have out there.
Yes, from experience, yes. I mean, there's so many forces that pull against the family.
I'll definitely agree with that. So, again, wrapping it up, shout out to all the great fathers. Dad, if you're not listening, well, I guess you'll catch it on iTunes or SoundCloud. I did all that prep for nothing. So, again, thank you to everybody for tuning in live. We'll be back between 8:30 and 8:40 next week. We on that CPT consistent. Hey, wait, is that a thing? We're consistently on CPT. Is that a
Yes.
thing? All right.
Yeah,
So,
and Lonzo Ball will be a Laker by the time
shut
we talk
up.
next
Nope.
week.
We'll talk about that next week.
Yep.
We'll talk about that next week. So, again, everybody, thank you for all the comments. Thank you for tuning in live. We will catch you guys Tuesday night between 8:30 and 8:40 next week.